Have you ever walked out of a room replaying a conversation, realizing too late that someone had steered you without you even noticing? A smile that hid a dagger, a question that made you doubt yourself, a silence that left you scrambling to fill the space. Moments like these can make you feel small, exposed, one step behind in a game you didn't even know had begun. But here's the truth I've learned. It's not luck, and it's not charm that gives some people that quiet dominance. It's discipline, it's clarity, it's the restraint to hold back when everyone else rushes forward. Most people reveal themselves too quickly. They speak to be heard, not to be understood. They fight battles that were never theirs to fight. And in doing so, they hand over their power. Yet there is another path, a quieter kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't beg, doesn't explain. It reads before it reacts. It shapes without forcing. These are not tricks, they are rules. And once you see them, you'll never see power the same way again. Stay with me. As we step into the first chapter, picture this. A crowded room, voices clashing, tempers flaring, and one man at the center holding steady like a stone in the river. The storm rages, yet he does not move. His tone does not rise. His pulse does not betray him. While others unravel, he stands untouched. That image is the essence of emotional stillness, the first and most vital rule of unshakable power. Now imagine the opposite. Someone takes offense, their words sharpen, their voice grows frantic, and with each reaction they hand away their authority piece by piece. I have seen this countless times. A man believes he is strong because he can shout louder, argue harder, strike faster. But in truth, he has already surrendered. He is no longer the master of himself. He is a puppet whose strings are pulled by anyone clever enough to provoke him. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His words are not poetry, they are a battlefield strategy. Think back to your own life. When was the last time someone drew you into an argument? Perhaps a stranger mocked your effort, or a friend questioned your worth in front of others. The heat rose in your chest, and before you knew it, you were defending, explaining, shouting. And when it was over, did you feel stronger? Or did you sense, deep down, that you had been played? This is how most people lose, not in front of an audience, but within their own chest. They mistake reaction for power, when in truth, it is slavery. The Stoic waits, he watches. He understands that insult is a test and anger is a trap. Silence is not weakness, it is a blade hidden in plain sight. Imagine standing before someone desperate to provoke you. Their words cut, their tone sharpens, their eyes search for the flinch. And yet, your heartbeat stays steady. You offer only a calm gaze, maybe a faint smile. You do not chase their chaos. You let them exhaust themselves against your stillness. That is power. Not the showy kind that burns fast, but the quiet fire that consumes without smoke. Some will say emotion makes you human, that showing it creates connection. And they are right. But only if you decide when and how to reveal it. A man who spills his feelings at every push becomes predictable, and what is predictable is controllable. A predictable man is a man who can be played. The Stoic does not erase emotion, he commands it. He chooses when it serves his values and when it must be held back. This discipline preserves his center, his dignity, his freedom. I recall a moment that seared this truth into me. In a crowded hall, a man insulted me openly, expecting a sharp response. Every eye turned to see the fight, but I stood silent. I looked at him calmly, then simply turned away. The silence echoed louder than any argument. He was left standing alone, his performance unfinished. In that moment, I understood. To remain unshaken is to win without lifting a hand. The hard truth is this: most people are slaves to their reflexes. A sarcastic comment makes them defensive. A dismissive tone sparks their anger. A delayed reply unsettles their confidence. They think they are thinking, but in reality, they are dragged by currents they never chose. The Stoic man is different. He asks, "Is this storm worth my energy?" He does not fight every battle, nor answer every call to war. He lets the noise of others expose them while he builds strength in stillness. To command respect, you must stop explaining your worth with emotions. Stop justifying through arguments. You are not here to seek approval. You are here to stand rooted in principle. Even in confrontation, let your calm be your weapon. Let your stillness speak for you. Watch as others grow restless, desperate for you to break, and crumble when you do not. Think like a general, not a soldier. Let others waste their arrows in haste while you prepare for the long campaign. Keep your tone even, your responses measured, your words few, and when you finally speak, let them strike like iron, sharp, deliberate, impossible to ignore. That is the weight of discipline. That is the strength of restraint. I have learned this in countless rooms. The calm man unsettles the proud. The quiet man disarms the loud. The one who pauses before speaking holds more authority than the one who shouts. And when insult comes, as it always does, remember this: you do not have to answer every storm. Sometimes the most powerful act is no act at all. To remain unshaken is to prove you cannot be owned. So hold the line inside yourself. Let the world pull, push, and provoke. It will adjust to you. Begin here with emotional stillness, the first unbreakable rule. And once you master this, you will be ready to uncover the next path toward absolute power. Moving into the second chapter, imagine walking into a room filled with voices crashing into each other like waves in a storm. Everyone is rushing to be heard, spilling their thoughts, scrambling to prove they belong. And then, in the middle of the chaos, one man sits silent. He does not compete. He does not rush. He waits. And it is his silence, not their noise, that begins to command the room. This is the paradox most never see. People mistake volume for influence. They think the loudest voice wins. But the Stoic knows that true power rests not in the sound of your words, but in the weight of your presence. Silence unsettles because it forces others to lean in, searching for meaning where none is given. When you are silent, you are not empty. You are full, listening, watching, measuring. And while others burn themselves out in haste, you conserve your energy like a sword held in its sheath, waiting for the right strike. Most people are terrified of silence. They rush to fill it, to explain, to soften the air. They fear the discomfort of stillness, but it is in that discomfort that power is born. When you hold silence, others begin to project. They wonder what you're thinking. They guess at your judgment. They reveal more than they intend, not because you asked, but because they could not endure the void you created. That is leverage. That is the moment the Stoic begins to win. I recall the story of a Roman general who attended a heated council. Voices clashed. Arguments raged, strategies were debated. He said nothing. Hours passed, and still he sat silent. His enemies mistook his restraint for weakness, but when at last he spoke, his single sentence ended the debate, shifted the campaign, and secured loyalty. One sentence, sharpened by hours of silence, carried more weight than all the noise before it. That is not myth, it is strategy. Silence is not weakness, it is discipline. It is the choice to create impact instead of clutter. And every pause, every withheld word makes the words that follow cut deeper. But silence is not just a tactic, it is also a test of the soul. Can you sit across from someone and say nothing, holding their gaze while the tension builds? Can you resist the urge to rescue yourself from discomfort with needless words? Most cannot. They start rambling, over-explaining, betraying their secrets, revealing their doubts, all in an attempt to escape the weight of stillness. And all you did was wait. All you did was hold the line. This is why, in negotiation, the man who speaks least often wins. Not because he is hiding, but because he is anchoring. He allows the other to rush, to reveal, to over-offer. And then, with a few precise words, he cuts to the truth. Restraint becomes persuasion. Discipline becomes dominance. Even outside the battlefield of high pressure, silence holds its quiet strength. In meetings, a pause after a question shows you are not desperate to please. In an interview, allowing silence before you answer signals confidence, not confusion. In daily conversation, the man who speaks less is valued more. Why? Because people sense he is not grasping for approval. He does not need to be liked. His restraint makes him rare. And in this world, rarity commands respect. Marcus Aurelius taught, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Silence is the embodiment of that wisdom. It says, I know who I am. I know what matters. And I do not need to perform for your understanding. It is not passive. It is not avoidance. It is a stance. It is a strategy. It is self-mastery expressed in stillness. And here is the deeper truth. The man who always talks becomes predictable, ordinary, forgettable. His words lose weight because they are too easily given. But the man who speaks with restraint becomes rare. His words are earned, not scattered. His silence forces others to lean closer, to wait, to wonder. And when he finally does speak, even a single phrase can turn the course of a room. That is the power of scarcity applied through silence. I have seen it with my own eyes. A man who answered insults with silence left his aggressor shaken. The crowd expected retaliation, but his calm refusal unsettled them more than rage ever could. Tea was not his words they remembered, but the weight of what he withheld. And long after he walked away, it was his composure they remembered. Not the insult, not the noise, but the silence. So train yourself to be still in a world that craves sound. Resist the urge to fill the air just to escape discomfort. Let others stumble over their need to be understood. Let them rush. Let them reveal. And, when your time comes, let every word be deliberate, like a blade unsheathed at the exact moment it is needed. Conversation becomes strategy, restraint becomes composure, and from that union rises quiet dominance. Master silence, and you no longer need to convince, you command. And from that place of calm strength, you are prepared for the next rule. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine a quiet man in a crowded hall. The air is heavy with voices, each one eager to prove something, each one revealing more than they realize. He does not compete with them. He does not announce himself. He simply sits, still as stone, letting others fill the room with noise. They see his silence and assume passivity, but in truth, he is gathering everything: words, tones, gestures, weaknesses, and when the moment demands it, he moves with precision, and all the attention shifts to him. That is the strength of being strategically misunderstood. There is a kind of power that does not shine in the open. It hides in restraint, in the ability to let others misread you. Most people live as open books. Their faces broadcast every thought. Their voices betray every insecurity. Their feelings spill before they are weighed. There is honesty in this, yes, but also exposure. And exposure makes them predictable. And what is predictable can be defeated. The Stoic sees further. He knows that real influence is not in revealing everything, but in withholding just enough. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, do not mirror aggression. Do not reveal your full hand. Let them believe they are winning. And when the moment is right, strike with the sharpness they never saw coming. I once watched a man underestimated in debate. His opponent mocked him, spoke loudly, exposed his entire argument with pride. The quiet man let it unfold. He didn't fight back. He didn't rush. Then, with a single calm sentence, he dismantled the entire case. The room fell silent. That silence was heavier than all the noise that came before. His strength lay in being misjudged. His restraint became his cover. This strategy is not deceit. It is discipline. It is the patience to be overlooked, even dismissed, because you know the moment of revelation will arrive. You might downplay your knowledge, not to appear humble, but to see who exposes their arrogance. You might let someone believe they outsmarted you, just to watch their confidence lead them into mistakes. You might nod in agreement publicly while keeping your conclusions private until you are ready to act. This is not manipulation. It is mastery of impression. Think of confrontation. Someone hurls an insult, hoping for your anger. You give them nothing, no fire, no flinch, just a steady gaze or a slight nod of indifference. That calm unsettles them more than rage ever could. They expect a battle. They meet composure instead. In that sudden quiet, doubt creeps in. Doubt slows them. Hesitation opens space. And in that space you find your advantage. This is why restraint is leverage. In a world obsessed with speed and noise, your stillness becomes rare. While others rush to prove themselves, you wait. While they expose everything, you reveal nothing. And in that unreadability, you become untouchable. When people cannot pin you down, they cannot control you. When they cannot predict you, they cannot prepare for you. And when at last you choose to act, your movement strikes with 10 times the force. I remember sitting with a man who hardly spoke during negotiations. He listened, nodded, gave away nothing. The others thought him passive, maybe even lost. They relaxed, spoke too freely, overplayed their hands. When he finally spoke, his few words cut directly to the heart of the matter. Everyone turned. It wasn't volume that gave him power. It was precision. Silence was his armor. Misdirection was his shield. Allow others their noise. Allow them their illusions. Each word they spill is another layer of armor you no longer need. Their assumptions are your protection. Their overconfidence is your advantage. You are not here to dominate every room with noise. You are here to remain unreadable until the moment demands clarity. Then, and only then, do you reveal the truth. Power is not always in presence. Sometimes it is in absence, in what is not said, not shown, not explained. That absence creates space. In that space, you gain clarity. In that clarity, you gain control. So watch. Wait. Let them misjudge you. Because the harmless man is the one no one guards against. And when he finally shows his edge, it is sharper than anyone believed. This is where the art of being strategically misunderstood becomes your shield and your sword. And from this hidden strength, we now step forward into the next truth, where absence itself becomes a force, and scarcity becomes the path to reverence. Here's where we step into the fourth chapter, and the image is sharp. A man who is everywhere, all the time, until his presence loses weight. His face blends into the crowd. His words dissolve into noise. What once drew attention now goes unnoticed, because what is seen too often becomes ordinary. And in a world addicted to constant presence, it is the man who is rare who becomes unforgettable. Scarcity is not arrogance, it is discipline. It is the quiet decision to make your time, your attention, your presence something measured, not spilled carelessly into every hand that reaches for it. Most people do the opposite. They rush to every invitation, respond to every message, chase every silence with words, not because it is needed, but because they fear being forgotten. They confuse visibility with influence, but in truth, constant exposure dulls their edge. Predictability robs them of power. And in the Stoic view, what is predictable becomes powerless. Imagine a man who speaks rarely in meetings, while others compete to be seen, filling the air with repeated points. He waits, he listens, and when he finally does speak, the room falls quiet. Not because he demands attention, but because he has earned it through restraint. His words are remembered because they are not wasted. His presence feels weighted because it is not scattered. That is the power of scarcity in motion. Epictetus gave us this reminder. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because once you release the need to be noticed by everyone, you free yourself from the trap of constant validation. You stop chasing every glance, every nod of approval, every scrap of attention. And in that withdrawal, your presence becomes sacred. The fewer your appearances, the greater their impact. Absence, when chosen with intention, becomes louder than any attempt at visibility. People notice the space you leave. They wonder where you've gone. They ask questions they would never have asked if you were always available. In that mystery, they begin to project value onto you, not because you claimed it, but because you withheld just enough to make them fill in the gaps. Human nature, untrained by reason, always chases what seems scarce. And when you step back, you become what they chase. This principle also teaches others how to treat you. If your time is always available, it is treated as worthless. People cancel, delay, or waste it because you have shown them there is no cost. But when you pause before responding, when you choose carefully where your energy goes, something shifts. They adapt, they prepare, they measure their words. Because they know your attention is not cheap. It is earned. I once watched a friend deliberately pull back from the noise of social circles. At first, people noticed less of him. Then, they began to notice his absence, and when he did appear, his presence felt like an event. People leaned in, listened more closely, valued his words because they were not always available. His silence carried meaning, his presence carried weight. He had refined his value by stepping back. Consider how elite circles operate. Not everyone is allowed in. Not everything is explained. The doors are guarded. The rules are unspoken. Their silence speaks louder than any advertisement. It is not arrogance. It is preservation of what is rare. Apply the same to your life. You don't need to post every moment. You don't need to be reachable every hour. You don't need to explain your absence. Disappear and let your silence do the speaking. Then reappear when it matters, and your return will feel like a statement. Scarcity is not about playing games. It is about walking with clarity. It is about training others to see that your time is sacred, your focus is not scattered, and your energy is not for sale. It is about protecting your center from dilution. You stop rushing to every stage and start choosing the stage that matters. You stop scattering your presence and start refining it. You stop exhausting yourself chasing attention and start walking in silence toward purpose. This is where true influence is born, not in being everywhere, but in being remembered where it counts, not in being constant, but in being rare. In a world drowning in exposure, the man who is scarce becomes revered. So let this be your reminder. You do not need to be seen by everyone. You need only to be remembered by the right ones. And once you master the art of turning absence into strength, you are ready to step into the next rule, where influence is carried not by volume, but by reflection. By the quiet act of leading others through the mirror they did not know they were facing. Entering the 5th chapter, imagine water flowing through a valley. It does not shout, it does not fight for space, yet over time it shapes stone, it guides rivers, it changes landscapes. That is the quiet strength of reflection, the art of leading without forcing, of guiding without declaring, of moving others as if it were their own idea all along. Here's where true influence begins, not in arguments, not in commands, but in presence. When someone senses that you understand them, that your rhythm matches theirs, that your pauses mirror theirs, that your words flow in step with their own, something shifts inside them. They stop resisting, they soften, they feel seen. And once a person feels understood, you have crossed a threshold no logic could ever open. Influence is not about control, it is about movement, and movement begins in alignment. I once watched a man diffuse a heated room without raising his voice. His opponent spoke fast, sharp, aggressive. For a moment, he matched the tone, not to fight, but to acknowledge. Then, slowly, he lowered his energy. His speech softened, his pace slowed. And without realizing it, his opponent followed. The room shifted from fire to calm, not because he crushed his rival, but because he offered something steadier to mirror. That is Stoic influence, guidance without force. Marcus Aurelius urged himself daily to act, not argue. Epictetus reminded his students that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments about them. To lead through reflection is to embody both truths. You are not there to crush someone's will. You are there to align long enough for them to trust, and once trust is built, they move with you freely. Think about daily conversations. If you walk in too polished, too intense, too different from the person in front of you, walls rise. They resist. But if you meet them where they are, in tone, in energy, in rhythm, they relax. They feel safe. And in that stillness, you find your opening. That opening is where persuasion begins, not through pressure, but through presence. The Stoic understands this subtle art. He does not need to dominate the space. He does not need to take up the air. His power is in shaping the rhythm of the exchange, often without the other person even noticing. He shifts tone slightly. He slows his words. He asks a single thoughtful question, and if the other follows, he knows he is in position. If not, he waits. He adjusts. He remains patient. Because he is not performing, he is guiding. This principle extends even into persuasion. You can have the most brilliant argument in the world, but if you are out of rhythm with the person you face, your words fall flat. They bounce off armor, but reflect their pace, their concerns, their worldview, even briefly, and the armor opens. Your words enter, and what once seemed unreachable becomes receptive. People remember how you made them feel long after they forget your words. Mirroring is not about being liked. It is about creating alignment deep enough that trust forms without struggle. And trust, once built, carries more influence than authority ever could. I remember guiding a conversation with a colleague who resisted every idea I raised. The more I pushed, the more he hardened. So I stopped pushing. I mirrored his concerns, repeated his words back in his cadence, slowed to his pace. Slowly, his resistance melted. He leaned forward, he opened, and by the end, he believed the solution was his own. That is the art. That is the power. To lead quietly, invisibly, until they walk beside you without knowing why. The Stoic does not need the spotlight. He does not need applause. His strength lies in shaping the current without announcing it. He becomes the still point in the chaos, the one others lean toward without understanding what draws them in. This is not manipulation. It is moral strategy. It is guiding others not for selfish gain, but because calm, clarity, and connection achieve more than pride or noise ever could. So the next time you step into a conversation, resist the urge to rush to be heard. Watch, listen, reflect, guide. Let your presence do the work. Let your silence shape the tone. Influence then becomes effortless. You do not convince. You do not argue. You simply stand in quiet authority and others follow. And from this place of calm reflection, the next truth emerges. Because once you have learned to guide others through alignment, the final step of power awaits. The ability to walk away with clarity, leaving silence as your ultimate command. From here, we enter the 6th chapter, and the image is simple yet powerful. A man standing at the edge of a heated argument, voices rising around him, insults flying, faces flushed with anger, and yet instead of raising his voice or striking back, he does something unexpected. He turns, he walks away. No scene, no explanation, just quiet departure. And in that silence, the room shifts. People replay the moment in their minds long after he has gone, wondering what gave him the strength to leave. That is the hidden authority of the Stoic exit. Most people cling. They hold on to jobs that no longer serve them, to friendships that drain them, to arguments that go nowhere. They call it patience. They call it loyalty. But beneath the surface, it is fear. Fear of losing status, fear of being excluded, fear of being forgotten. They stay long after the value is gone, and in doing so, they trade their dignity for familiarity. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. The wasted years are often not in action, but in hesitation, in refusing to let go when the moment to leave has already arrived." The Stoic man is different. He does not measure himself by how long he can endure what breaks him. He measures himself by his clarity. He knows what aligns with his values and what does not. He does not stay out of desperation. He stays only as long as purpose requires. And when purpose ends, he departs. His strength is not in clinging, it is in letting go. I remember a man who walked away from a lucrative business deal. Everyone thought he was reckless. The money was good. The recognition was great. But the deal asked him to compromise his principles. He didn't argue. He didn't try to justify. He simply closed the folder, stood, and left the room. For weeks, his silence haunted the others. They questioned themselves, not him. And in the end, it was his absence that forced them to adjust their terms. He returned on his own ground, and this time they met him with respect. That is how clarity works. It is not noise, it is not fire, it is the quiet power of knowing when to walk away. Walking away is not about coldness, it is about clarity. It is about recognizing that not every fight is yours to fight, not every seat at the table is worth taking, not every voice in the crowd deserves your response. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." To walk away with clarity is to claim that power. It is to refuse to let outside demands dictate your inner state. Consider relationships. How many endure ones that bleed them dry, mistaking suffering for love? How many accept betrayals they would never advise their own friends to tolerate? They stay, not because they believe, but because they fear. Yet the Stoic man knows, when you walk away from what dishonors you, you protect what is sacred in you. You preserve your energy, your clarity, your peace. You teach others that your presence is not theirs to own. It is a gift they must respect. Even in conflict, this principle shines. Let them raise their voices. Let them twist the story. Let them throw their weight into the room. You don't need to fight fire with fire. Sometimes the sharpest strike is silence, followed by departure. You leave, and in the echo of your absence they hear the truth louder than any argument. Later, they replay the moment in their heads. Why didn't he fight? Why didn't he defend? And each time your silence speaks again, a reminder that you were never trapped. This choice changes everything. In business, it makes your terms stronger. People know you are not desperate. In relationships, it makes your presence valued because you are not afraid of solitude. In life, it grants you quiet authority because you are untouchable by the fear of exclusion. When people sense you do not need them, they treat your time and presence with reverence. Walking away does not make you weaker. It makes you unbound. It makes you unpredictable, not in chaos, but in freedom. You are not chained by fear of loss. You are not ruled by the hunger for approval. You are guided by principle, and principle alone. And in that freedom, you command respect without asking for it. I once saw a man walk out of an argument with nothing but silence. His opponent was left shouting into emptiness, a king without an audience. And in that moment, the truth became clear. Sometimes the most powerful presence is the one that no longer remains. His absence was not retreat, it was victory. So remember this, walking away is not escape. It is strategy. It is the highest form of discipline to leave not from emotion, but from reason. It is how you protect your future from bitterness, your time from waste, your heart from chains. And when the world sees that you can go, it begins to treasure the moments you choose to stay. This is the final lesson, the quiet power of the exit. To know when the story no longer serves your growth. To turn the page without regret. To leave without explanation and let the silence carve your imprint. From that stillness, you rise, untouched, unshaken, and ready for whatever comes next. True power is never loud. It is the steady presence that listens, waits, and chooses with clarity. These 6 rules are not about dominating others, but about mastering yourself. When you command your emotions, embrace silence, accept being misjudged, value your absence, guide with subtle reflection, and walk away with peace. You stop chasing the world and begin shaping it. If this message resonates, take a moment to subscribe and keep growing this strength within. Comment, stay sharp, to ground it deeper. Carry this calm into your life and be ready for what comes next.